I stopped taking photos at family events for almost 3 years. Not because I didn't want to remember them, because I hated how I looked in every single one. And I couldn't figure out why the mirror at home felt kinder than the camera ever did. Tonight I'm giving you 7 haircuts that fix exactly that gap. The one between how you feel and how you're actually being seen. These are cuts built around your bone structure, not trends. And they work whether your hair is fine, thick, straight, or curly. I researched the worst style and beauty mistakes and the best fixes for women over 50, so you get real results, fast. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. Part 1. The collarbone lob and the curtain bang. Here's something almost nobody explains before you sit in the chair. The length of your hair changes where a stranger's eyes land first, and past a certain point, they stop landing on your face at all. Hair that falls past the collarbone with no shape pulls attention straight down, past your jaw, past your neck, to wherever it finally stops. You've felt this. You've stood in front of a mirror lifting your hair off your shoulders just to see what happens to your own face when the weight comes off. That's not vanity. That's you discovering the mechanic on your own. The fix is a collarbone length lob cut with a slight forward angle, longer near the chin, shorter in the back, with soft face framing layers instead of one blunt line. Tell your stylist exactly this. I want a lob that hits my collarbone, angled longer at the front, with soft layers around my face, not blunt all the way around. That distinction matters. Blunt at this length can look severe on mature features. Soft layers catch light and move, so the cut looks finished from every angle, not just the one you rehearsed in the mirror. Mechanically, length that ends at the collarbone builds a frame around your face instead of a curtain hanging past it. Your jawline gets defined by where the hair stops, not swallowed by where it keeps going. Here's the snapback. Women who make this switch stop hearing cute haircut. They start hearing, you look rested. Did you do something to your skin? Questions that have nothing to do with the actual haircut. That's the tell that it worked. The best changes at this age don't announce themselves as a haircut. They just quietly recalibrate how old a stranger thinks you are. So the swap is this. Hair past the collarbone with no shape, versus a collarbone lob angled forward with soft layers. One drags the eye down, the other lifts it. Now here's the second cut in this part, and it fixes a completely different problem. One that lives right above your eyebrows. As we get older, the forehead tends to look longer, and the space between the brow and the hairline starts reading as bare instead of open. A full, straight-across fringe is too heavy and can age the face by boxing it in. But a soft curtain bang, parted in the center and swept to each side, blended into longer layers, does the opposite. It shortens the forehead visually without covering it completely, and it softens the transition between your hairline and your face. Ask for this exactly. Can we add a curtain bang, parted at the center, swept to the sides, blended into my layers so it's not a hard line? The blending is the part people skip, and it's the part that makes it look expensive instead of accidental. The result shows up almost immediately. Women describe it as their eyes suddenly looking bigger, which isn't an illusion. The fringe is framing the upper part of the face the same way the lob frames the lower half. Together, the two cuts bracket your whole face instead of leaving it exposed on both ends. The swap here, a bare, exposed forehead with no framing at the top, versus a soft center-parted curtain bang blended into layers. One leaves the upper face unfinished. The other completes it. But length and framing are only half the story. What happens when the hair itself has gone thin? And no amount of cutting seems to give it back the fullness it used to have. Part 2, the shoulder grazing shag. Item 3. Most women think thinning hair is a texture problem. It's actually a shape problem, and almost nobody fixes it that way. When strands get finer with age, one-length hair doesn't just look thin. It looks flat, because there's no layer catching light or creating the illusion of density. You can have the same number of hairs on your head as you did at 40 and still look like you have half as much, purely because of the cut. You know this feeling. You've pulled your hair back in a low bun and thought, when did this get so thin? And it wasn't thinning that did that. It was the shape holding it flat against your scalp. The fix is a shoulder grazing shag, cut with heavy layering through the crown and face framing pieces around the front. Say this in the chair. I want a shag that hits my shoulders with lots of layering through the top and shorter pieces around my face for volume. The word shag scares some women because they picture something messy from a magazine decades old. This version isn't that. It's controlled layering, built specifically to lift hair away from the scalp at the root, which is where thinning reads the most. Here's why it works structurally. Layers cut into the crown create separation between individual sections of hair, and separation reads as volume even when the actual hair count hasn't changed. The shorter face framing pieces do double duty. They add movement around the jaw, and they break up the visual weight that used to pull everything down and flat. This is the same principle stylists use on runway models with naturally thin hair. It's not a mature hair trick. It's a physics trick that happens to solve a mature hair problem. The snapback here is specific. Women with this cut stop hearing, "Your hair looks thin," from anyone, including themselves in the mirror at 6 a.m. with no product in it. That's the real test. Not how it looks styled for an event, but how it looks on a Tuesday morning before coffee. A well-layered shag holds its shape even flat and unstyled, because the shape comes from the cut, not from what you do to it afterward. There's a version of this story that sticks with me. A woman in her late 60s had been wearing the same one-length bob for over a decade, convinced her hair was just getting thinner every year, the way everyone told her it would. She switched to a layered shag on a whim before a granddaughter's graduation. She told her stylist afterward that for the first time in years, she caught her reflection in a shop window and didn't look away. So here's the swap. One-length hair sitting flat against a thinning scalp versus a shoulder-grazing shag with heavy crown layering and face-framing pieces. One exposes the thinning. The other camouflages it completely, using shape instead of styling effort. I said 7 cuts, and I've given you 3. But the next one might be the most misunderstood haircut in this entire list, because most women over 60 were told to avoid it entirely, and that advice is exactly backwards. Part 3. The modern pixie with length on top. Somewhere along the way, "Short hair ages you" became gospel, repeated so often that women started avoiding pixies entirely, even when everything about their hair texture and face shape pointed toward one. Here's the part nobody corrects. It's not short hair that ages a face. It's a specific kind of short hair, cropped too tight at the sides, no length left on top to soften anything, essentially a helmet shape with no give. If you've ever tried a shortcut and felt like it made you look harder instead of lighter, that's not proof short hair isn't for you. That's proof you got the wrong shortcut. The fix is a modern pixie that keeps meaningful length on top, tapered close at the sides and back, but left long enough on the crown to texture and style with movement. In the chair, say, "I want a pixie that's short at the sides and back, but keep several inches on top so I can add texture and movement, not flat against my head." That length on top is the entire difference between a pixie that ages and one that looks deliberate and current. Structurally, here's what's happening. Short sides create a clean, sculpted line along your jaw and cheekbone. Genuinely flattering bone structure work. But if the top is equally short, there's nothing to balance that severity, and the whole cut reads as harsh instead of chic. Length on top gives you a soft, textured contrast against the sharp sides. It's the haircut equivalent of pairing a structured blazer with something soft underneath. The contrast is what makes it work, not either element alone. Here's the snapback that surprises women every time. A well-cut pixie with length on top doesn't read as brave or bold. The way people assume short hair on older women has to be framed. It reads as effortless, the way it does on younger women who wear the exact same shape. Nobody looks at a well-cut pixie and thinks that took courage. They think, she clearly knows what works for her. That shift from perceived bravery to perceived confidence changes how people approach you in a room, not just how they compliment your hair. I think about a woman I came across who'd avoided short hair her entire adult life because a hairdresser told her at 25 that her face was too round for short hair, and she carried that sentence for nearly 40 years. At 68, her stylist talked her into a modern pixie with length on top. She said afterward that the round face nobody would let her forget about was somehow the exact reason the cut worked so well. So the swap, a uniform, helmet short crop with no length anywhere, versus a modern pixie with short sides and textured length left on top. One looks severe. The other looks intentional, current, and quietly confident. That's 4 down. But the next part covers 2 cuts at once, and one of them fixes a problem so common I'd guess it's sitting on your own head right now. Part 4. The soft layered shoulder cut and the side-swept pixie bob. Here's a pattern I see constantly. Women who color their hair beautifully, take care of their skin, dress with real intention, and then wear a haircut they picked in their 40s because it still works fine. Fine isn't the standard we're using here. Fine is hair that doesn't actively hurt you, which is a very low bar for something everyone sees before they see anything else about you. If your current cut hasn't changed in over a decade, you already know which category you're in. Not a bad haircut, just one that stopped being chosen and started being defaulted to. The 5th cut is a soft layered shoulder-length style, cut with rounded internal layers rather than heavy chunks, designed to move as a unit instead of separating into pieces. Tell your stylist, I want soft, rounded layers through a shoulder-length cut, nothing choppy, so it moves as one shape when I turn my head. Rounded layering versus choppy layering is a real technical distinction, and it matters enormously on mature hair, which often has more texture variation than it did at 30. Choppy layers can look uneven on textured hair. Rounded layers look deliberate no matter what your natural texture is doing that day. The mechanism is about movement, not volume this time. Hair that moves as a soft, connected shape reads as healthy and cared for, the same way a well-tailored coat reads as expensive because of how it falls, not just its color. Static, stiff hair, even in a good cut, can read as older simply because nothing about it moves naturally when you turn your head or laugh. The snapback on this one is quiet but real. People stop being able to guess how long it's been since you changed your hair. That sounds small. It isn't. A haircut that looks intentional, current, and well-shaped removes the unconscious aging cue that comes from wearing the same static shape for years without anyone noticing it slowly stopped working for you. Now for the 6th cut, which solves a different problem entirely. Hair that's too short for a full bob but too long to feel like a pixie. The length everyone calls awkward, without offering a real solution. The fix is a side-swept pixie bob, longer through the front and one side, tapered shorter through the back and opposite side, with the length swept diagonally across the forehead. Say exactly this. I want a pixie bob, longer in the front and on one side, shorter in the back, with the front swept across at an angle. This asymmetry isn't decorative. It creates a diagonal line across your face that's genuinely more flattering than a straight, symmetrical fringe, because diagonal lines draw the eye up and across instead of straight down. Women who make this switch describe feeling like their whole face woke up. And structurally, that's exactly what's happening. The asymmetry breaks visual monotony, the diagonal sweep lifts everything toward the eyes, and the length variation gives you something that photographs well from angles a symmetrical cut simply can't manage. So 2 swaps here. An outdated one-length shoulder cut with no true shape, versus soft rounded shoulder layers that move as a unit. And separately, a stuck-in-between length with no direction, versus a side-swept pixie bob with asymmetrical length and a diagonal sweep. Both trade stagnation for intention. 6 cuts down. The last one isn't about length or layers at all. It's about a single detail most women get completely wrong, no matter which of these 6 cuts they choose. Part 5. The precision blunt fringe. Here's the detail that undoes an otherwise perfect haircut more often than any single mistake on this list. A fringe that's cut soft, wispy, and safe, because a stylist assumed that's what a woman over 60 would want. Soft, thin, see-through fringes don't read as gentle. They read as unfinished, like the cut ran out of confidence right at the front of your face. If you've ever gotten bangs and felt like they did nothing, it likely wasn't the decision to get bangs that failed you. It was a fringe cut too sparse to make any visual statement at all. The fix is a precision blunt fringe, cut just above the brow line with a clean, defined edge, then paired with any of the 6 cuts already covered. Tell your stylist, I want a blunt fringe cut straight across just above my brows, with a clean, sharp line, not wispy or see-through. A blunt fringe on mature hair does something a soft one can't. It creates one strong, deliberate line across the top of the face, and that single strong line does more visual work than 5 soft, indecisive ones. Here's the part that surprises people. A defined blunt line draws the eye immediately to your eyes, because it acts like a frame edge, the same way a mat around a photograph directs your focus straight to the image instead of the wall around it. A wispy fringe has no edge to do that job, so the eye just drifts past it to wherever else it lands, usually somewhere lower on the face that you'd rather it skipped. The snapback is immediate and visible, not something that takes weeks to notice. The moment a blunt fringe is cut, eyes look bigger, brows look more defined, and the whole face reads as more awake, because the visual noise around the eyes just got removed. Stylists call this opening the face, and it's one of the fastest, cheapest changes on this entire list. No color, no length change, just one clean line. There's a small detail worth knowing before you ask for this. A blunt fringe needs a trim roughly every 3 to 4 weeks to stay sharp, because it grows out and softens fast, drifting back toward that same wispy, undefined look you were trying to avoid. It's a slightly higher maintenance choice, but the payoff, a genuinely more awake, more youthful upper face, is one most women decide is worth a monthly 10-minute trim. So the final swap, a soft, wispy, see-through fringe that fades into the background of your face, versus a precision blunt fringe cut clean above the brow. One disappears. The other frames. 7 cuts, and every single one of them works the same way. Not by fighting your age, but by finally cutting hair that matches the face you actually have right now. You now know exactly what to say in that chair for 7 different cuts, and more importantly, you know why each one actually works on your face, not just that it's supposed to. That's the difference between hoping a haircut helps and knowing it will. Out of these 7, which one matches your hair right now, the lob, the shag, the pixie, or that blunt fringe you've been avoiding for years? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. Next time, I'm covering the colors that make gray hair look expensive instead of dull. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.